Do you set financial goals? I do. Keep watching to learn how one YouTube video changed the whole way I was setting goals for 2025. Hi, friends. Welcome to Oakledge Finances. My name is Stephanie. My husband and I have 6 kids. We homeschool and we live on one income. Here at Oakledge, we are all about life in the messy middle. Last week, I watched a video on YouTube put out by The Money Guy Show. And this video, which they titled, Is Your Brain Keeping You Broke?, was all about 4 different mindsets and how they affect the ways we spend our money and how we do our budgets. Although they talked about 4 different ones, the one that I really want to talk about today, the one that has stuck with me and influenced me to change our budget, was the 80-20 rule, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. It goes something like 80% of the consequences come from 20% of the causes. Or in budget terms, 80% of our spending is caused by 20% of our budget, which was kind of crazy for me to think about. So I asked myself, is this true for my budget? Does 80% of my spending really account or really come from only 20% of our spending categories? In order to answer this question, I flipped over to my YNAB tab and I pulled up the reports. They have a different name for it right now, but it's basically reports. So I specifically went to the spending breakdown report and I put in the parameters for January to December of 2024. So I would have the whole year, which would pull in all the different spending that was just an annual expense, like our insurances and stuff, because I wanted to see for the whole year, what would it look like? Well, here's what it looked like. As you can see here, this is our 2024 Oakledge spending broken down by the categories. And this is our top 11, top meaning these are the categories we spent the most on for 2024. So from January 1st to December 31st, this is where all of our pennies and dollars went to, because I tracked everything last year. All right, so for number 1, our top expense at 29% was our mortgage. Now for 2024, that does include our escrow account, our insurance, and our property taxes. January of 2025, I ended our escrow account, so our 2025 numbers will be a little different. So 12% went for groceries, 7% for auto insurance, 6% for propane, which we use to heat, hot water, our stove, our cook stove, and our clothes dryer all use propane. 6% for our HSA reimbursement, which last year was a really crazy year, and I have a note about that. And then 5% went for our 2024 adventures, which is what I call our travel, and 5% for our house maintenance and repair, 3% for gas for our vehicles, 3% for electric, 2% for classes. These are homeschool classes that my boys take, and 2% for clothing. Is the 80-20 rule true for my budget? Does 80% of my spending come from 20% of my budget? Yes. Technically, 24%. Close enough. Am I comfortable with this spending breakdown? Yes and no. I'm happy to see, in fact, I am thrilled to see that our 2024 adventures, which is our travel category and my favorite category, made it in the top 10 list. I'm also glad to see that the classes that my kids take as part of their homeschool also made it in the top 10, because those are fun, they're important. Much more, well, I wouldn't say much more important than electricity, because we're not going to be doing much if we don't have electricity, but it's a whole lot more fun to spend money on those things than to send it to the electric company. So while I am happy about some things, I'm not so happy about the others, like electricity and insurance and propane. So going forward, I want to spend more on our 2025 adventures than I spend on propane and insurance, which means I got to make some changes. What small changes can I make to our spending budget that will result in big impact? How can I apply the 80-20 rule in my favor instead of against me? So I've come up with 4 changes that I can work on right away. The first one, lower our grocery budget, which let me tell you, that one's going to be tough because I'm feeding 8 people. Basically, 6 of us are grown. And I already have it cut down pretty well. I'm not sure how that one's going to work. So my initial goal is just to lower it or decrease it by 10%. 10% feels doable. We'll see. I'm going to make it a challenge for myself, and I will share with you how things work throughout the year, because I like a good challenge. Brings out the competitive nature in me. Also, my next goal is to lower our electric bill and to keep it at $200 or below, an average of $200, because some months get really tough, specifically July and August when we're running air conditioners. So my goal is to keep my electric bill on average $200 a month. My next 2 things I can implement right away. First, I want to call our internet service and ask about discounts because they just raised the price. But I'm seeing online promotional prices that are cheaper than what they want us to pay. And we've been with them for over 5 years. So I'm hoping that they're going to be willing to lower the price for us. Also, I want to call about our cell phones. We use Cricket for my husband and my for our cell phone provider. And again, I'm seeing promotional packages online that are cheaper than what we're paying. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to lower those. If I can follow my goals on these, if I can make it work, I'll save $960 a year on groceries. I will save $240 a year on our electric bill. I'll save $60 a year on our internet and $120 a year on our cell phone. That's a total possible savings of $1,380. $1,380. Wow. The kind of trip I could plan for my husband and I with that kind of money. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not staying in a fancy hotel and we're not eating out 3 times a week or 3 times a day, but we can have a really fun trip on that kind of money. And I also came up with a couple of other ways. I need to shop around and see if we can lower our home insurance. I need to shop around and see if we can lower our auto insurance. Those are a little more complicated because we currently have them bundled. And while my husband and I only own 2 vehicles, my 3 adult children each they bought vehicles, but they're on our auto insurance. So I'm not just shopping for 2 vehicles, I'm shopping for 5 vehicles. So that really gets complicated. So that's going to take a bit more time and energy on my part. So stay with me because I got real nerdy on this. If I can lower just the ones that I know for sure that I can deal with, not including the insurance, but the other pieces, that's roughly 2% of our budget taken from the fixed costs and moved over into our travel adventures. 2% doesn't really seem like much, but it could put our adventures at 7% of our budget instead of 5% and move it up into the 3rd place in our spending breakdown. So that would mean our top 3 in our spending breakdown would be our mortgage, our groceries, and travel. And let me tell you, that makes me excited and that makes me willing to make the sacrifices and do the hard work. So make sure that you subscribe to follow our journey to spend less on fixed costs and more on adventure, because I'm definitely going to be sharing all the tips and tricks, the wins, the not so wins, the highs, the lows, the dips in the road, all throughout this year. I'm going to bring you along and share with you how I'm doing. All right, tell me in the comments, is the 80-20 rule true for your budget? And if it is true, are you comfortable with that? Are there changes you want to make? Are you like me and you would rather spend more on travel? Or maybe travel's not your thing. Maybe clothes is your thing. Maybe you want a new car. Whatever it is, tell me in the comments, what is it that you're willing to make changes for, that you're willing to sacrifice and do the hard work so that you can make that your 80% in 2025. Thanks, and I will see you again soon. Bye.